Hello and welcome to Dark and Stormy Book Club. Today we have a visit with old friend Desmond Ryan. And be sure and stay tuned after our interview because we have a recap from Fright Reads. Enjoy! I'm Ann Dart.
I'm Tracy Stormy.
And I'm Kathy Knight.
And together we are
It Was a Dark and Stormy Book Club,
a podcast for mystery lovers.
Welcome.
If you enjoy our show, please consider contributing to the Dark and Stormy Patreon. By becoming a patron, you will help us create better and quality content. There are also benefits to becoming a patron, such as exclusive content and Dark and Stormy merchandise. Become a supporter at patreon.com/darkandstormybc. Check our website for the link. We appreciate any and all contributions. Thank you.
Mary Margaret and the Case of the Lapsed Parishioner is by Desmond P. Ryan, and it is put out by Level Best Books, and it came out August 28th of this year. When Mary Margaret O'Shea, a woman of a certain age with mildly Machiavellian tendencies, discovers a homicide scene and meets an unimpressive lead investigator, she realizes that she has no choice but to solve the crime herself. With little help from Michael, her police detective son, she enlists Arthur, her eccentric housekeeper, to help her find the killer. In Mary Margaret and the Case of the Lapsed Parishioner, a series of assumptions and misguided steps may lead her to the killer, or they may make her the next victim. We are thrilled to have back on the program one of our very favorite people. Desmond Ryan is going to talk to us about his new series. Welcome, Desmond.
Thank you. Wow, with a welcome like that, I don't really know where to go.
Forward.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, forward.
Onward and upward.
Onward and upward. Yep. I feel like when we celebrate our anniversary on this podcast, that you should be right along with us because you've been with us since almost the very beginning.
Sounds great.
That's awesome.
Sign me up.
He's in the pub already, miss.
I see this.
It's noon somewhere.
Noon. We've backed off from 5. Now we're just noon is good. Okay.
Yes,
okay.
yeah.
That's the Irish equivalent.
Oh, got it. Okay. No, that works for me too.
Well, tell us what's going on with the book, Desmond.
Well, as you probably know, Mary Margaret and the Case of the Lapsed Parishioner has finally come out. Level Best Books is my publisher. It's out now in ebook. It's going to be out in paperback soon. It's going very, very well. I've started doing the book tour end of things, which is so much fun because, as you know, Mary Margaret is a lot of fun, a lot of fun to talk about. And the next book is done. It's just got to be put out into the universe, and that'll be coming up, I think, this time next year. So that'll be pretty great.
Do we have a title?
Yes, Mary Margaret and the Case of the Thieving Barmaid.
Ooh, there you go.
As you know, in the cozy tradition, I don't know if I'm giving anything away here, the books, but the deceased has to be moderately to quite unlikable. And who could dislike anybody more than a thieving barmaid?
I mean, as you do. As you do. You know what's really funny, though? I had no idea about that when I wrote my first cozy mystery. And my first cozy mystery, the person I killed was someone super nice.
You can't do that.
I guess you can.
Yeah.
maybe not as well as the people who are hated, but I struggle with that sometimes because I'm like, man, how many hated people can I have in town? Do you ever stumble a little bit over, well, who am I going to kill this time?
Well, again, this becomes problematic because, as you've said, you've got a very small selection pool in a cozy situation. You're not dealing with international terrorism or anything
Right.
like that. So, you have to find people who are utterly dislikable. I find it easy with Mary Margaret because what I look at is moral transgressions. In the third book, I've got a philandering mechanic that has to go. In these ways, it's kind of easy. They can't be integral people to the community.
Right.
Of course, yes.
So, I mean, how many of these blow-ins can there be?
Right. Although, have you ever written a story with somebody that is a very big part of the community and we weren't aware of their transgressions until somebody came to get them?
There you go.
Whoa, I wasn't prepared for that question. Because originally I was thinking of
See,
the
you
other.
can tell she brings some experience to the
Yes, yes.
Every once in a while.
She knows
Not
of
always.
what she speaks.
Yeah, apparently I can't be on time, but I can ask good questions.
Yeah, we can't be good at everything. In my other series, in the Mike O'Shea series with Sal, he was a very likable character.
Mhm.
And I found it devastating when he got killed.
Oh, yes. I
Yeah,
And
I
I don't think I could write really likable characters who get killed because they're just too nice and you
Yeah.
like them
Okay.
too much.
Even if they had a background that we just didn't know about
I think then that would make them less likable. And we
in
could
the story itself.
then we could reconcile that. By and large, likable. And, they had a few little quirks and things like that. I think just to kill them off would be just too painful for me. And I just don't want to do it.
So in other words, I'm more brutal than you are.
Yeah, Misty, I didn't want to say it, but
If you've got all these people who are committing all these bad things and they're dying around Mary Margaret, is Mary Margaret going to be known as the angel of death because
She's there for all of them.
it's interesting you say that because it has come up. I'm not sure if it's in the second or the third book where her son Mike says, like, what's with you and death? Because for him, as a police officer, as a detective, he sees death because that's part of his job. He gets called to it. It doesn't happen in his world. And yet there's Mary Margaret who, people, they're not just dying around her, they're being killed.
Well, suspension of disbelief that the reader walks in with anyway. I mean,
Yes.
really, the police should probably take care of any dead body that's found, regardless. But we're going to be nosy. So do you think, though, that lends itself then to us being able to write more dead people in town than normal because the reader is there and knows that that's what we're doing?
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think we talked about this a bit when we were all together at Malice. And just that suspension of belief where, again, for most people, if you come across a dead body, it's quite disconcerting.
Yeah, well,
And
you would
it's-
hope.
You would hope. And it's usually has some sort of medium to long-term effect as opposed to just, oh, well, let's just go to the pub and talk about it and we'll be fine. Which again, I think is why our genre is so appetizing, if you will, to people, is because that suspension of belief is that we think as the reader that we are in that world. We're able to deal with these really heavy, major issues in a quite a palatable way. And in many of my readers say they read a cozy, like just before bed, they're in bed, want to 15, 20 minutes. They'll pick up a cozy and you're thinking, you do realize you're reading about murder.
Right.
Yeah. But it's the way it's presented. And as we've said, it's very character driven and it's more about the fumbling and foiling and all of this silliness than about like something like a police procedural, which is really gritty in your face. This is how it goes. This is what it looks like. And you don't want to read that before bed.
No. Well, and I think that they are there for the community building too. They know someone's going to die. They want to see how far you're willing to take that person and how bad are they. They're rooting for your main character and they love your main character, and whoever she deals with on a pretty consistent basis, they're looking for, well, what's so-and-so up to? What's the postmistress doing now? Because she shouldn't be as sassy as she was last time. And so I think looking for that justice, but also finding the community aspect of it. I think that they like it still feel good, even if it deals with murder.
I think that speaking for like the Mary Margaret character, in real life, she would be shut down very, very quickly.
Yes.
On the third book I'm working on now, she just saunters into a crime scene.
And, as you do.
As one does. When she gets sort of found out in the crime scene, it's like, oh, well, you should have been watching more carefully. And because you weren't, you could be in big trouble. And
she has a little more, I don't know what I want to say, like leeway with that because of what her son does. If it weren't for him, I don't think she'd feel as comfortable doing that. So there is some of that.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I think it's also a character trait of this whole, like, of course I'm here. This is what I'm doing. And don't question me.
That's the Irish woman.
Yes.
Right.
Is she going to have her cohort with her?
Oh, yes. Arthur, they're a tandem. Basically, with that character, he's very much based on someone who was actually my house cleaner, was not a very good cleaner, but it goes on and on and on. But again, just pushing that character beyond to see how far I can go to the point where that you're not going to believe it anymore. So for me, that's the game, is to see how far I can push these characters before it's too much.
Yeah.
Interesting. The game that I play is, can I beat you to the end? And you're not allowed to look at the end and then tell me that you knew what happened if you haven't read all the way through. But I'm in
People
the same.
do that?
Oh,
People
yes.
actually go to the end. Oh,
absolutely. They want to know
That
who's
is
dead.
basement.
And they're like, yeah, I kind of figured it after I read the ending first. And I was like,
You know,
That's
so
excellent.
my son had an English teacher in 9th grade that actually recommended that. And I told him, if I catch you doing that, we will have words.
In effect, you are asking people to believe a whole lot of things.
Absolutely.
That you're willing to do with this character, with the people that are dead, with the clues, and then you have all the red herrings. It's not as if there's one person like in a suspense. You know who it is and you're just trying to thwart them. You are going to start sorting through other people's lives. And so it is important to come up with a character who could, at least to some extent, do that.
Yeah, and I think more than anything, though, with A Pint of Trouble is the series name, the point is pushing the characters as far as I possibly can. I am thinking that the difference in characters and what you know about them in the first book versus the fourth book should be significant. And if you were to pick up the fourth book, which you could, saying, okay, well, that's a bit outrageous. But if you start at the beginning, you just see how she just kind of creeps in, like the frog in the boiling water idea. You start off with everything fairly normal, then you just kind of crank it up. And like with the frog, starts out in regular water. They don't actually do this. It's not a real test because it would be bad. The frog suddenly realizes the water is boiling, but it's taken time for just building that up.
Wow.
And with Mary Margaret, I just keep throwing something else in, and then you let the dust settle, and then people accept, oh, that's Mary Margaret, and then throw in something else, and just to see how outrageous I can make her.
Does Michael show up in the book?
Oh, yes. Poor Michael.
Is she still at his house or did she move back home?
No. She has decided that she must stay there because his life is a mess. He is suggesting that his life is a mess because she is staying there.
Right.
And so there will be this forever conflict between them.
She's keeping her house?
Oh, yes. She still has her house, but she can't possibly leave Michael at this time in his life.
Right. But she doesn't bother with the broken leg or that kind of nonsense.
Well, no, she has another illness in the next book. And then I think in the third book, she just has all these reasons why she can't leave. It's practical reasons. I believe in the third book, Teasy and Alan are going to be staying in her house because their house is undergoing a big renovation.
Oh, there
Well,
you go.
that makes sense, I guess.
But she forgot to check with Michael if it was okay if she stayed. It's just she can't go back because Teasy and Alan are living there.
Right.
House now for about 3 years, right?
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. To me, this is a very unique situation as far as cozies with the same characters as your police procedural. Has this ever been done before?
I wouldn't want to say no, because I honestly don't know. It's interesting because in the police procedural, obviously Mike is much grittier. His language is very, very different. And Mary Margaret can be a little grittier in that book as well. But when he comes over into the cozies, he's toned down dramatically. But he's also a bit player in the cozies.
Yes. I think that's amazing that that's working out that way.
It really is a different kind of concept. I can't remember any that I've read.
Misty, can you think of anything that comes close to that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there have been offshoots, but usually it's an offshoot from
In
a
the same
cozy
genre.
mystery. Yeah. It's a cozy mystery, and then so-and-so moves to a different town, and then they're also doing the cozy mystery, but I don't know that I've seen a crossover between procedural and cozy mystery. Look at you being innovative.
Well, there I am. But it comes out of laziness on my part, and I needed a break from the police procedurals, because as I think I was talking before, you know, we had discussed way long time ago about giving Mary Margaret her own book, and I kind of toyed with that. But then 2020, when the pandemic hit and there were some other issues that arose in my life, things were very, very, very dark. And I found writing the police procedurals was really dark. And so I thought, I need a break from this, but I need to write. And so that's when the Mary Margaret came in, because it's just so fun to write. And also where the laziness comes in is it's the same characters. So I don't have to get to know all these new characters again. And I'm finding
a new world.
Yeah. And I'm finding this now because I'm working on another couple of series that are completely unrelated. And I'm really finding that I'm having to think about it and struggling. And I was out with a friend the other day and talking about this, but I've been writing the Mike O'Shea and the Mary Margaret world for the past 10 years. I know these people very well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically like sitting down and having a discussion with your friends, and you can explain the world very easily because you know that world so well. So it's very helpful for me.
Now, the hard copy comes out later this month. Is that what you said?
I am hoping so. There's been a bit of a delay with the publisher that we're working on as we speak, because I know a lot of people have approached me and said that they would like to get hard copies because their friends like hard copies more. And it's a great Christmas gift. People like books. So I'm hoping it will be out the end of the month. I'm going to keep on my publisher, who keeps telling me they're keeping on their end of things where there's the glitch, and hopefully it'll be coming out soon.
Will there be an audiobook?
I am forever hopeful. Cindy Ballard of Birch Literary is my agent on that, and I think it would be great. I was doing another podcast where I was doing a reading of it, and the podcaster suggested I would be great doing the audio.
Oh my God, that's what I was going to say. Because a long time ago, when we first met you and you were talking about Mary Margaret, you put it in a voice. So now whenever Mary Margaret's in a book, that's the voice I hear.
I wouldn't say no, but I wonder if there's somebody who could do it better. But I'm hoping that Cindy Bullard will get that happening. I'm sure she's doing her best. Somebody just has to pick it up.
Yeah.
Well, if you can't do it, we could get Brendan Gleeson. He has a pretty good Irish.
Yeah.
He might squeeze in, you know.
Yeah, well, because I'm pretty busy, so maybe
you could probably give him a few points.
Yeah, well, I'll send him a text message after this call and just say, hey.
If you've got nothing else to do, I was just thinking.
For our listeners who are not familiar with Mary Margaret, can you give an elevator pitch?
Mary Margaret O'Shea is probably every Irish mother on the planet. She is first generation Canadian, and as many people who come from other countries are, Actually, she's an immigrant. She's not a first generation. They retain more of their culture than they would have had they stayed there. And so Mary Margaret is the matriarch of the O'Shea family and has been for several years. Her husband died when the kids were young, and she runs things the way she runs them. She can be Machiavellian as required. She has no issue with that whatsoever. She gets things done, and she knows that God is on her side. And so even if she might do a few things that she shouldn't, she knows that God will forgive her. Very, very convenient that oftentimes that things come up that are just too complex for her to explain at the moment. It's not that she can't be bothered, but so you wouldn't understand. And I don't have the time to tell you right now. And so it's one of those, it'll all work out in the wash kind of things. Father McGill is rather afraid of her. She has decided who people are and how they will react. And for the most part, she's right. And she's surrounded by people who genuinely love her. And so they make sure that things work out for her. But she doesn't have the insight to see that this is so and assumes that everything works out because she has made it so.
Yep, there you go.
So
That's why we love her.
Yes, Desmond, I just love the whole concept of Mary Margaret from beginning to end. I just am so excited that this finally happened, and we wish you all the luck in the world. Not that Mary Margaret needs it.
Right. She's got God on her side.
That's right. That's right. And again, writing a character who has, it's not even confidence. It's just that sense of, that God knows I'm doing the right thing and God will forgive me and everything will work out and go forth. And she does play by the rules. It's just not your rules.
Oh my goodness.
It's just great.
You did allude to the fact that these will not be your only 2 series.
I'm working on another couple of series. Now, you'll like the backstory to this. Several pubs in my neighborhood that I can walk to, which is not necessarily a good thing. But at one of them, I know the bartender quite well. And so I frequent this pub and we sit and talk. I go on a night that is particularly quiet. And I realized how busy the bartender is and how much goes on. Because, when you're sitting at a table, you order your drink and you assume the bartender does nothing but stand there and wait for you to order another drink. When in fact, there's an awful lot going on. And so as I was watching him and I realized he knew everybody who came into the bar, I started to think, what would happen if I set a series in a pub? And I decided to set it in 1985, just because that was a really fun time for me. And then I decided to set it in a small village or town just outside of London, England. And of course, I realized then I'd opened up a whole can of worms because I don't know this town. I've set it right in the middle of the Thatcher years, and there's a whole pile of stuff going on, but it's kind of like Coronation Street meets Murder, She Wrote.
There you go.
And then I set up another series with a very unassuming retired police officer who had a very unstellar career because he has a stutter. It gets worse under pressure, which is not an ideal thing for a police officer to have. But for his father having been a police officer, he never would have been hired in the first place. And then he had a sort of significant on-duty incident occur that meant that they couldn't in good conscience let him go. And so he spent 30 years behind the front desk at the station, ends up inheriting a house in a small village. And they all think that he is a murder squad detective. And of course, a murder occurs and they defer to him.
Okay.
That's a good one. I like it.
That is a good one. Yeah.
Yes. So we shall see how those go.
Lots of things on the horizon. That's awesome.
Yes.
15 years ago, I assume that's when you were a police officer?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. If somebody would have told you that you would be writing cozy mysteries, what would you have told them?
You're
In the
clearly
cage.
drunk.
Yeah. Because this is not your typical ex-cop
Career trajectory.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
we are so glad that you did.
Well, it's fun because I feel I've spent 30 years dealing with really difficult situations and people in difficult situations. And it's nice now to be able to take that knowledge and make it fun.
Mm-hmm.
As we've discussed, the readers are a fun group of people. It's really, really engaging community, and it's something completely different and yet not.
Will you bring a new spin to it?
I hope so. I just started up a new thing called Brews and Clues at another local pub in my neighborhood, the second Thursday of the month, calling in some of the crime writers of Canada to do little readings and talk about their books in the pub. And it's, early in the evening. It's for about an hour. Gives people an opportunity to come in, have a drink, have dinner, whatever, and talk crime. I've got some true crime writers coming, some crime fiction, like just every crime writer across the genre is coming.
Very
Awesome.
good.
That's really cool.
So it'll be fun. And if it works, we'll sort of set up a template and then hopefully get other writers in other communities being able to do it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just to bring readers in, because not everybody has access to crime writers, but everybody likes to read. So why not put them together?
Well, Desmond, it's always great talking with you. We're looking forward to seeing Mary Margaret take over the cozy world.
Over the world. As she should. She's already taken over the world. You just don't know it yet.
That's true.
And obviously, from all your goings on, we'll have plenty of opportunity to get to speak with you again.
Yes, and that'll be great. I'm really looking forward to it. This has been wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Well, you enjoy the rest of your day, and we will be talking soon.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We also attended the Fright Reads Book Festival this past weekend. You've heard us talk about it for about a couple months now.
Actually, a couple years.
It was fantastic. It gets bigger and better every year. We're a very eclectic reading group. We like mysteries, of course. We like true crime. We like almost everything. And horror is on the list, not as high as some of the...
Oh, not for me. Speak for yourself.
After reading a few more books that I have over the last month, I'm a fan. I'm going to read more horror. I look forward to it because there's so many books out there. We first want to take a minute and send a huge hug and thank you to Harry Carpenter and his team. They kept things running smoothly. They kept Harry from having a heart attack. It was just amazing.
It was so well done, even to the point where we decided at the last minute we wanted a table. They made it happen for us. They put one up for us, and we had the best time talking to fans. And we thank you from the bottom of our heart for all those people that signed up for our newsletter.
Yes.
Kiss, 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 hug, hug, hug.
We will gladly add you to our list and send you the latest one. Be sure and check out next month's newsletter. I'm going to have a display of the major things we saw at Fright Reads. So look forward to that and be sure to check that out.
Because usually when we go to book festivals, and we love all of them, everybody's demure and they nice. People pull out all the stops. They're wearing costumes. It was so much fun to see what people could come up with. Harry's looking for all kinds of ideas to make this an even better event next year. And it's going to be hard to top this year.
Yes. We met some lovely people. We especially met and just fell in love with two girls called the Jersey Ghouls. We met them after one of their panels. We talked to them.
They are a fellow podcast group. I've been listening to their podcast since we met them, and they are delightful. This whole month, they are highlighting The Exorcist, and it's very cool. They're going through each movie adaptation, and then they're also comparing the book to the movie. So that made me go back and read The Exorcist. And I'm listening to the audio book. Blatty is actually the person reading the book.
Oh,
So
really?
I am enjoying that immensely. So I wouldn't have done that if I wouldn't have started listening to the Jersey Ghouls. They are a horror film and culture podcast with a feminist twist. We represent the feminist perspective and enjoy promoting local tri-state area horror community. And we are so looking forward to lots of collaborations with them. They are our kind of people.
Yes, they were brassy and bold, intelligent, and funny. And their podcast is very interesting.
You can find them at jerseyghouls.com.
After you listen to this podcast. Okay, we also met some wonderful people. We had panels.
We were pleased to host 3 panels during this event.
The other people we want to make sure we shout out are Rosalie Spielman, Melissa Annan, and James Rada, who were on the program, and Joyce Elaine.
And we would be amiss if we did not mention that we cannot thank our fellow podcasters, Misty Simon, aka Misty Knight, and Kathy Bentley, aka Kathy Knight, who really worked their tails off that day to get in front of people. And Misty was playing double duty with her own table. So thank you very much, ladies.
Yes. And we thank you for sticking with us. Because of the length of this episode, we're going to skip trivia this week. We will give you the answer to the question next week. Thank you for listening. And remember,
life would be boring without a little mystery. Mystery and mayhem and ghoulish things that go bump in the night.
bye.